Hey, on today's episode of the Utah High School Hoops podcast, I am so stoked to be joined by the deacon of dunking. I didn't ask him if I could use any of these nicknames that I'm just making up right now. The Baron of we'll go with the venerable Viking of verticality. I don't know. My Dickie V my Dickie V nicknames are failing me right now. I should have written them down. But I'm going to be joined by Andy Nicholson. Andy is with the Dunk Camp. He's down in Utah County. I want to talk about, just his history. He's got a really cool backstory. It's really fun to talk to old people who are still doing it and who can still get out and dunk. So we're going to talk about that and why you should consider joining, like I sent my son AJ to, why you should send your kids or you yourself go to the Dunk Camp. We'll talk all about that right here on the Utah High School Hoops podcast. This is the Utah High School Hoops podcast, your source for sometimes informative, but always entertaining coverage of the Utah High School Hoops scene with your host, Adam Meek. Hey, what is going on, Andy? Thanks so much for coming through on this. What is today? Tuesday. It's the start of, it's kind of the official, unofficial start of March Madness, actually. The NCAA tournament kicks off tonight. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Adam. It's great to be here.
Yeah, the most important question that I have of the entire thing, we'll just get it out early, is how far do you have my Colorado State University Rams going in your bracket? Is it Final Four, or do you have them winning at all? Where do you have them?
I'll give them Sweet 16, maybe, but
I don't
have them going all the way.
I don't think they're getting past. They got to beat Virginia. Then they got to beat Texas, and then they got to beat Tennessee. So they got to win the play-in game. So frustrated. Anyway, that's not why people are tuning in to hear us go on and on about the tournament. Although I'm sure we have very, very serious opinions about who's. Do you have a winner? By the way, we'll just get it out. Who do you have winning it all this year? Do you remember?
I'm still thinking about it, and I got to check with Chat GPT, I think. But I think I don't know. Big 12. I predict a team from Big 12, maybe okay. Houston could do it. So
they can.
Although they did not look good in that tournament, but
I know, but that's fool's gold. I found out every time I pick, I'm like, I don't know, because I don't watch a ton of college basketball. I'll tune in for the end of the year, and I found that the data suggested it's actually not super indicative of how well they're performing in March Madness in the tournament. So I'm just like, I don't know. They can really defend, and who knows? I think I picked North Carolina to win it all because that's just what I picked. So if you want to win your bracket in your company pool, do not pick North Carolina because I never win. So just take whatever I do and do the opposite is probably your best.
You're Charles Barkley of those kind of predictions.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing because my little sister she's the NBA draft analyst for Yahoo Sports. She watches college basketball constantly, and she is always so much better at knowing who's going to win. I'm like, I don't know. I really like this team. One year it was like Georgia Tech, and she's like, they're not very good. I'm like, no, I watched them in the tournament. They're not very good, apparently. That tournament, they got killed. Anyway, Andy, thanks so much for coming on the show. I'm excited to talk about your background, your history, the Dunk Camp, all these sorts of good things. I know you've been expanding it, so we're going to talk about the expansion of the Dunk Camp. So why don't you do a quick introduction, much better than I did at the very beginning where I was trying to make up nicknames for you. Why don't you do a quick introduction?
Yeah, those were some new nicknames I haven't heard before. So
I kind of like the Deacon of Dunking. The Elder of Elevation could have been another one that just.
Oh, there we go.
I don't know. They're just flowing.
Yeah, man. Next time I need a marketing caption or something, I'm gonna reach out to you.
Sweet.
Some creativity there.
I work for shoes, by the way. I don't need money. Just shoes are great. That's just so you know. It doesn't pay the bills, but
it's a new pair of basketball shoes. Okay.
Yep.
Good to know.
Yep. Any of them. All right. Anyway, you
Awesome.
go ahead. Why
Yeah.
don't you do a quick introduction?
So, you want the kind of the story on the dunk camp?
I would love to hear about how you became the owner and proprietor of the dunk camp as a guy. And I don't know. I'm 43 years old, right? I don't know how old you are, but you're not 18. I'm sorry to tell you that.
Yeah,
But
that's
you are
true.
you are proudly out there just saying like this is who I am, that I'm an old guy who can dunk it, and you teach people how to do the same thing. So I'd love to hear about that story.
Yeah, so, the the shorter version of this, story is I learned how to dunk as an old man, as an old guy in my 40s. Uh, Although I had tried and tried and tried and trained kind of all my life, having been a basketball fanatic, but I really didn't, uh, have much success until I was in my 40s. And, I was sharing that story, my kind of my, um, midlife crisis, if you will, as I was trying to, recapture my youth in my 40s, and I started dunking, and to the point where actually participated in a dunk contest at 44.
Okay.
And throughout this journey, I was sharing kind of what I was doing, and people started asking me, well, how did this happen? What are you doing? And I started becoming friends with a lot of these professional dunkers that probably many of the people watching this have seen on their social feed, and many of them started helping me and coaching me and helping me improve and get better. And eventually, having gone to a bunch of basketball camps growing up and loving that experience, and having gone to this, we used to go to these huge dunk sessions, kind of all over the place, and I ended up going to Florida and happened to be there with some of the best dunkers in the world. And for like 5 days, all we did was dunk, watch dunking videos, talk about dunking, eat, go to sleep, and then repeat. Do that every day for like 5 days. And I was like, this is kind of like being at a camp, like a dunk camp. And there's no dunk camp, so there
Oh,
should be a dunk camp. I'm going to create one. So that's what happened. And I was in the first year was in 2018. So we're now 6 7 years into it.
that's awesome. So you started kind of sharing a little bit about your journey though, right? On You were sort of early on into YouTube and blogging and things like that. Did you have people reaching out to you during that time saying like, "Oh man, this is super helpful," and thanks a lot? And were you starting to did you build a bit of an audience through that helped to launch the dunk camp, or was it also in conjunction with who are some of the Jordan Kilgannon, right? And
Hmm.
Isaiah
Rivera, yeah.
Rivera. I'm trying to remember the
Uh-huh.
names of the guys that AJ watches, but hey, was it kind of in conjunction with them and their audience, or how? I'd be curious how this whole thing sort of came about from an idea, right? Let's have the dunk camp to we have a dunk camp.
Yeah. So that dunk session I mentioned in Florida, Jordan Kilgannon was there, and Isaiah was there, and several other top dunkers. And so I got to meet them in person for the first time. And I was in awe. I was watching these guys, huge fans of them. And so it was a combination throughout my journey, and I was sharing what I was learning and what I was doing in my training. People were following me, but these guys had way bigger followings. And so when I decided to do the dunk camp, and they were involved as some of your coaches, so you come to dunk camp, you get to learn and be trained by Jordan Kilgannon and Isaiah and these other guys. They were able to bring a lot of their audience as well. So it worked really well. So we have athletes that are very young, younger, like your son that came last year, or high school age, all the way up to last year. We had a 54 year old man come to camp. So the age range is huge. The interest and passion and people's dreams of dunking, that age range is pretty large. There's a lot of guys and girls too that want to be able
Mhm.
to dunk a ball, and come to our camp, and we teach them some of the things that we've learned, and help us make progress and get better at it.
What is the two questions, a two-part question? What's the coolest dunk that you would say I've done? Like, not me, because mine's a one-handed off of my left foot when I was about 21 years old. That's the coolest, but I got it. It was like, I get why people want to do it because it's one of the coolest feelings ever when you do it, right? It's for somebody who's really been trying. So what's the coolest dunk that you've ever done? And do you have like a dunk that you're working on, sort of, I don't want to call it like a holy grail dunk, but something you're just like, man, I want to be able to do this by the time I'm, in a year or whatever it is.
For sure. So I'm I've despite my love for dunking and running the dunk camp and teaching all these things, I'm still like a basketball player at heart who loves to dunk. So I've never been like anywhere near. Sometimes people assume, oh, this guy's like a pro dunker. I'm more of like, you see skills trainers and basketball coaches who have a huge love for the game,
Yeah,
but aren't Michael Jordan or Steph Curry, whatever. So that's
sure.
me in dunking. My best dunk or my favorite dunk I've probably done so far is a self bounce to a two-hander, or kind of my what I'm kind of known for. If for those who've seen me dunk, I go off the glass a lot. That's become the easiest or most consistent dunk for me is to go off the glass. And so I love the feeling of that dunk. It just feels fun and powerful. And like you said, there's just that feeling of throwing the ball down is is just the coolest thing. So
Got it.
um, those are those are some of my better dunks. As far as what I'm working on, I still have not hit a windmill. So I'm 52 now, and I think if I hit a windmill, I'd probably be the only person to ever do that for the first time in their 50s. I'm also not super tall. I'm just under 6 feet. I'm 5'11" and a quarter. So I
That
don't
quarter's
have.
important. That quarter, because it's going to
It
be
is.
5'11" and no quarter at some point here pretty soon. I'm
Well,
guessing
I,
'cause
well, I
gravity.
was 5'11" and a half
Okay, so you know it.
many years ago. So yeah, I am shrinking a little bit, but so age and my height, it's not working in my favor. But windmill is still something. We have dunk camp coming up this summer, and yeah, I would love to shock the world and throw down a windmill
Oh,
at 52.
we're definitely rooting for you. I guess
Thanks.
I'll ask another question because I got to witness last night. A friend texted me and just said, "Hey, I got a free ticket to the Jazz game," and I'm not like, I'm from Colorado. I'm not like a Jazz fan, but I'm like, "Oh, they're playing the Timberwolves. Like, I love Anthony Edwards, and I can root for the Jazz because I'm a Nuggets fan, so I want the Timberwolves to lose." And I almost left the arena when Anthony Edwards dunked on John Collins. And I don't know if you know this, but I put on Twitter that John Collins, he ended up entering the transfer portal. That's how bad the dunk was. He was just like, he's getting some D2 looks, and JUCO looks. So no, but seriously, it was the wildest thing I have ever witnessed in terms of like a live game. Everybody in the arena just goes, we just saw something incredible. Like, we will tell people we were at the game when Anthony
Yeah.
Edwards did this to John Collins. So have you had these moments either at dunk camp or at a dunk competition or a show, or even you just like I saw it live in a game where you're like, I get to tell people that I was there when this happened. Have you had that moment?
Yeah. Yeah. So um, at camp, crazy things happen. For example, 2 years ago, we had the Guinness official world record for highest vertical jump set at the dunk camp here in Utah. A lot of people don't know that, but it's an official. You go to the Guinness World Record and look up highest max vertical jump. That happened at the Karl Malone Training Center in Lehi, Utah, and so that was a cool thing. And this year, Isaiah is planning to break that again. So in June at our dunk show, Isaiah is planning to break the current world record, which is 50 inches on a max vertical jump. Um, so that's one pretty cool thing. Um, some of my favorite things, though, I wouldn't necessarily break the internet or anything, but we've had about 30 guys now get their very first dunk at camp,
Mhm. I love
and
those videos that you guys post, by the way. Yeah,
yeah,
everyone
it
just goes
just
nuts. It's amazing.
yeah. Yeah, so that's a legendary, moment that you'll never forget. You'll remember it the rest of your life, and we feel like super grateful to have those moments happen at camp because I think for most people, if they were able to dunk the ball, it might have happened at a park by themselves or in a church or wherever. No one was there to celebrate that moment or witness it, and maybe it never happens again. But at camp, you're there with people that really, really love dunking and celebrate that moment with you. And got a few people cry after. You had one guy in particular, David, who's from Colorado, actually, 40 years old, 5'9", got his very first dunk at camp, and he started crying.
Mm.
And I'm not an emotional crier, but I was getting all emotional, and just you see someone reach their dream, and you have a hand in that, and being part of that it's really special. So those moments may not break the internet or anything like that, but just so cool and fulfilling to be part of those moments when someone reaches a dream like that. It's really really cool.
They may not break the internet, Andy, but they might break your heart. Um, all
Yeah,
right. Well, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take a quick break, and we're gonna hear from our sponsor Ruvi and also Verbal Commits. But when we come back, I would love for you to talk a little bit about maybe just some, some points or some advice that you've kind of given throughout the years through your blog or through YouTube or even at the dunk camp that just are things that really help people. And then we'll also end with just how do people sign up for the dunk camp? I know that it sells out pretty quickly, so how can they stay involved and that kind of stuff. So we'll cover those two things. That sound good?
perfect. Yeah,
Okay, we'll cover both of those right when we get back after a word from our sponsors, Ruvi and Verbal Commits. We'll be right back.
How the heck are you supposed to eat 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day? And as a mom, I think I figured it out. Ruvi. Ruvi is the only way. Open, pour, shake, drink. My kids love Ruvi because it tastes so good. And when in your life are you going to get this many fruits and vegetables in just one serving? Like I get to eat my McKee berries. Trust me on this one. Try it once and you will not regret it. Your kids won't even complain that they have to drink it. It's that good.
And you won't regret going to goruvi.com and using code Adam15 to get 15% off your purchase. That's goruvi, GORUVI.com, and use code Adam15 for 15% off your purchase. Also want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Verbal Commits. Verbalcommits.com is your source for all sorts of recruiting information. It's been amazing for my son, AJ. He's got a profile on there. Coaches have been reaching out. If you want to look at the transfer portal, if you want to see where people are being offered, where they're signing, if you even want to be able to reach out to a school and maybe they have, 17 kids at your position that they've already offered, it'll give you all the information you need. So parents, players, coaches, go to verbalcommits.com, use code Utah, which is spelled UTAH, in case you don't know that. Now you do. Use code Utah to get 10% off of your subscription there. All right, we are back with Andy Nicholson from the Dunk Camp. And before we went to break, I said, hey, can you give some advice to, let's pretend like, I don't know, a 5'10", 43-year-old is going like, hey, what would be some things that some advice you'd give to an adult or a 16-year-old high school basketball player? Are there some principles that you like to give to people who are like, what are some things I could do to just get started on my journey to dunking, besides the obvious, which is to sign up to come to the dunk camp?
yeah, definitely do that. Um, so yeah, there's so many things I could share, and this has been a lifetime pursuit of learning for me. And some of the common things I would share. Some of them were very practical, so I'll start with those, and then maybe give some things that maybe aren't so obvious. But one thing that's for sure, it's a non-negotiable, is the consistency. I Probably one of the most common mistakes I see, no matter your age, is people will try it for like 2 weeks, and that's just not enough time for the body to change. You got to basically force the body to adapt. So there has to be enough time where you're creating that enough of a stimulus so that you're forcing adaptation. So 2 weeks of training isn't not gonna be enough. It's probably a minimum of about 3 months. So
Mhm.
if you're not willing to like, okay, I'm going for 3 months, then you're probably not gonna see much of a difference. So you kind of have to be willing to say, okay, I'm gonna invest 3 months of my time.
Minimum, right?
Um,
I mean, it's obviously
Minimum.
it's a lifelong thing, but if you can't go 3 months, you're not gonna make it a lifetime.
Absolutely. And the higher you jump, the longer it takes to continue to make progress. The whole law of diminishing returns. So I'll give you an example. Isaiah Rivera, who's planning to break the world record at our camp this year, it took him uh, 6 years to go from 44 inches to 50 inches. That's about an inch a year. Okay.
Yeah,
Now, if that's dedication, that's someone who really, really wants to get better. So just to give you an idea, of course, if you're only jumping 20 inches right now, going from 20 to 26, that could probably happen in a couple of months, right? But over time, the higher you jump, the longer it will take. The
makes
whole
sense.
diminishing returns. Another thing that is very practical but often overlooked is tracking. And I see this all the time. You will accelerate your progress. You'll be way more efficient. It's very motivating. And so when you are training, and this applies to any kind of training, maybe it's just shooting. If you're a basketball player and you don't track your shots, you're missing out on progress and gains because you don't know how well you're shooting. You don't have that extra motivation. There's no pressure. Same thing applies to vertical jump. So you should be tracking, how much you're lifting and your whether you're doing squats or deadlifts or lunges or any of those kind of weights, but also your jumps. You should be tracking that. Another very practical thing that most people don't do is when you're jumping. We know from doing this for a long time is you should ideally have a target when you're trying to jump. So it might maybe you're younger and you're just trying to hit the net, or maybe you're trying to get to the backboard or the box or the rim or the square, whatever it is, or maybe you have a vertex or something like that. But whatever whatever you have access to and wherever level you're at, you want to be tracking those jumps and how you're jumping. Those are some things that will definitely help, no matter what your age. The older guys, the most common thing that I've seen is just because it happens to the best of us is most American men are too heavy for jumping. So you're going to have to probably drop some weight. If you're in your 40s and you're going to go after dunking, I would be shocked if you didn't need to lose a little bit of body fat, even if you're in great shape. That's probably going to be something you're gonna have to attack with your diet. Is
Yeah.
uh, is just getting more lean.
I on that point, I have a friend who started ultra marathons later in life, and it was the same thing, right? Like long, similar sort of training, tracking and eating and all this kind of stuff. And he said, but and the biggest thing is like you just can't carry that sort of body weight. Your your joints and your bones and it's not going to work. So if you're going to start running marathons and ultra marathons, obviously it's a natural part of the training where you're probably going to start losing weight. But he gave me the same advice. I'm not trying to go run ultra marathons, but I have started running more, and I, not for any sort of, I'm not tracking it. So I'm actually super stoked on that advice, because it's like, yeah, I got to get better at just tracking my progress and having a target. And what's funny is I still remember, speaking of like the joy of things, I remember the first time I touched the net. I was in like 7th grade, and it was maybe I was in 6th grade. It was 6th or 7th grade, right? I remember the gym, and I remember jumping up and touching the net. It was the greatest feeling. And the first time I ever did like a backboard layup, and I just barely scraped my finger on the foam at the bottom, it was like, I did it. So
Yeah,
these sort of like incremental wins, like I try to tell people in my full-time job, it's awesome to celebrate those, right? Just because it's not a self bounce, or you're throwing it off and you're dunking with two hands. Like I think you got to be able to celebrate those things, right? And be able to track them and be stoked on them. So I love that advice. That's great.
Yeah, super motivating. Definitely encourage you to add tracking, and especially basketball players. You can apply it like I was saying with your shooting. Go shoot 100 threes. Track that. Know where you're at.
Yeah, it drives me crazy. It's one of my pet peeves actually with especially with high school, middle school basketball players that are like, I'm gonna go get shots up. I'm like, it doesn't matter if I mean it does and it doesn't, but it's like if you go shoot 500 shots, I I'll quote Jerry Sloan, right? Like I don't want shooters, I want makers. It's like track how many you make of the 500
Yeah,
shots. That's
that's
the
right.
important part. No coach is like, I just need you to shoot more bad shots. Like if you're a bad shooter, they don't want you. If you want to shoot more shots, you got to be a good shooter. I don't know what else to tell you. So I'm guessing if you want to be a dunker, right, you got to be able to track your progress and have a target. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, so people show up. They go to the dunk camp. You have them in Lehigh, right, or in Utah, and then you also have them. I've seen them now. They're opening up around the U.S. Is this correct?
Yeah, and we're starting slow. We're not going to a million different cities. So last year of course, we had our main camp here, and then we went to Texas. This year, we're again doing our camp here in Utah, and then we're going to Wisconsin actually, and
Okay.
we'll have our camp there.
What city in Wisconsin?
We're just outside Milwaukee, in a suburb called Franklin.
Yep. That's cool. I've been to
Yeah.
Franklin, Wisconsin, as a matter of fact,
Oh,
uh, randomly.
you're ahead of
It's
me. You're ahead of me. I haven't been there yet, so
yeah, yeah, it's not a bad part of the country for sure. Well, that's cool.
good to
And,
hear.
um, so obviously we have a bigger audience here in Utah than probably in Wisconsin or in Texas, but, can people still sign up for the camp here in Utah, or would they be on a wait list?
We are full for Utah. It's sold out. Our Utah camp sold out like the first day we open, and but I wouldn't uh, don't if you really want to come to camp, get on that wait list because things do change. We have unfortunately sometimes athletes get injured and aren't able to attend, or people book it 6 months in advance, so sometimes schedules change. So get on the wait list if you really want to come, and maybe mention that you saw this show, and maybe that'll help you rise a little higher on the list. Just this is a plug for those that are listening, but we love to see you guys at camp. We do have spots at our Wisconsin camp, although you obviously have to go all the way to Wisconsin,
Yeah, but
which
listen,
may not be ideal. But
I've done that flight before from Salt Lake to Milwaukee. It's not bad, people, and it's totally worth it. Not only the education was great, the practical takeaways were great. I mean, I know AJ still hasn't gotten his in-game dunk, son. You're almost there, but he's definitely taking what he learned. He's been applying it. Like you talked about that consistent kind of work, being able to have that, we'll call it sort of the catalyst, um, and then be able to keep the work up is really important. And the other thing that I thought was for him was so cool was he's watched these guys. You talk about Jordan and Isaiah, and who's the 1 foot, the guy that jumps off 1 foot. I don't
one
remember
foot God, his
one
name's
foot guy.
also Jordan, but yeah, the 1 foot God, Jordan Sutherland.
Yeah, so these guys that AJ's watched online, it was just cool to be able to interact with them and learn from them and get pictures and all that kind of stuff. So I think the younger kids, they have an advantage because you can build that foundation early. So parents, I highly recommend getting your kids involved. What is there a good age, like a young age range that you would recommend for people to come?
We started at 14. We
Okay.
feel like for the camp experience, it's pretty intense. We jump a lot, we dunk a lot. There's classroom, and so we feel like age 14 and up is the right age. But
Makes sense.
we are doing training outside of camp as well. So if that's something that you have an athlete that's we don't just do just the camp. The camp is the Christmas event of our of what we do, but we also do private training and personal training. So and we
Okay.
work with all ages there. So if there's a
Down
younger
down at
athlete
Carmel.
that private gyms or depending on where they are, we will figure out a way to train. But we go all over and mostly use private gyms.
Okay, sweet. Well, that's great to know. And where would one get information on both of them? Is it all at the is it at the website, the Dunk Camp website? Is that kind of where everything is, or is
Yeah,
there training separate?
yeah. Go to the dunkcamp.com, or on Instagram, it's also the Dunk Camp, and TikTok and Twitter. It's the same handle across all those platforms. And you can reach me directly on my Instagram is Over the Hill Dunker if you want to just talk to me directly. But
Such a great
that's the
handle.
yeah, thanks. So yeah, dude, just reach out. We would love to help those that have these dunking dreams. We understand what it's like, and we'd sure love to help you reach those dreams.
I love it. Well, everyone go check out the thedunkcamp.com, follow all the socials. If you didn't get a chance to write them down, they'll be in the show notes. And if you are under the age of 30 years old and you listen to this entire episode without any breaks, if you took 30 minutes out of your day and just listened, then kudos to you. You are in the top 1% of people your age, because nobody consumes long form content anymore. And I think they do. It's just, it's not as prevalent as it once was. So I applaud the people who are like, no, I listened to the whole episode. And I'm like, awesome. I'm super glad. So I'll make sure to plug everything in the show notes. You can click on the links. I'll make it super easy. Andy, thank you so much for coming on and for all the work that you do. And just it's obviously an inspiring story, but it's even more inspiring to me that you took a story and turned it into an entrepreneurial dream where you get to help people do what you're passionate about. It's it's one of the more thrilling things in my life when I get to meet someone like yourself. So thank you so much for uh for getting out there and pursuing what you love. It's awesome.
Thanks so much. I loved being on the show, and I appreciate you having me. And loved having AJ at the camp. So congrats to him and your family on the state championship this year. By the way, that's
It's
very
pretty
very
cool.
cool.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah,
It was pretty awesome. So I'll let him
absolutely.
know. All right. Well, thanks again, Andy. Appreciate you.
Thank you.